Hi, everybody. Air One Fire, I'll forgive it because your question is not really a question, but just like a nice sort of prompt to get me to talk about more happy stuff. But, just intentionally waiting until the last second to give me just a little bit more work before I go live on the air. I think I'm just gonna break and I'm just gonna say we'll say you have to have your questions all in by 15 minutes before showtime or something to save myself the aggravation. But anyway, no hard feelings because it was a I appreciate the sentiment behind it. Hi everybody, welcome to the show. So how are you? What a oh what a what an interesting month today has been. So as usual, I will be spending the first part of the show answering questions that were submitted ahead of time by my wonderful Patreon patrons and channel members. So if you have anything for me in the live chat, and most particularly if you were planning on being generous and tossing a super chat my way, please, if at all possible, hold off until I get to the end of the pre-submitted patron and member questions, and then I can pay my full attention to the live chat. So anyway, oh, and Kirok says, "Is that rule now, or are you just considering it?" I'm just considering it. I'll put it. I'll make a note of it in the post that calls for question submissions if I ever decide to actually do that. I'll say like, make sure that you have your question in by 15 minutes before showtime on Friday. But for right now, nah, fuck it, don't worry about it. Anyway, yes, thank you, some random geek. See, even when Geek is not actually on camera on the show, Geek is still acting as my unofficial producer. I will make an announcement if I do decide to make any changes to how the questions are collected. But anyway, um, speaking of the questions, let me answer some of those, or maybe all of them. And by the way, there are 35 questions this time. It's a fairly heavy bunch, so if I go through them quickly, I apologize if you submitted a question and you feel that I didn't give it its due diligence. I will try to answer in as pithy a manner as possible just to get through them so that the entire show isn't just me answering the pre-submitted questions, because I do want to hang out with the live chat. Yes, Geek, and you pay me. All right, turning away from the live chat now. First question is from William Tucker. How do you continue to have energy to fight against the overwhelming tide of political corruption and brain numbing nonsense of the big orange Cheeto? Um, Part of it is having a routine. Wake up about the same time every morning, do the same thing every morning to get started. Have work that is not just political stuff. Like, I mean, obviously, I make a lot of political videos, and the political videos, especially since the election, have become a much more visible part of the channel and have taken up a lot more headspace for me. But I also have stuff that is at least not directly related to the current political situation. Politics is kind of in everything, but I can talk about Star Trek, I can talk about comic books, I can talk about MacGyver, I can talk about all kinds of stuff. I can make videos about all kinds of stuff. I can make funny videos, I can make skits and sketches, and you know, so my YouTube work affords me the opportunity to talk about and think about and do stuff that doesn't always have directly to do with Trump and whatever shit show he is uh, ringmastering on any particular day. So that's part of it. And also, taking time to just not think about it at all, to watch a movie, to go for a walk, to do something else, to clear your head, right? That's very, very important. So, and the other thing is, how do I continue to have the energy to fight? If you call what I do fighting, which I think might be flattering me, but how do I continue to have the energy to keep doing it? What's the alternative? Give up? I don't think that's an alternative. I that's not in the cards for me. Faragrim, thanks for answering my question a couple weeks ago. This question is far less intense. Which Star Trek starship design is your personal favorite? I love the NX-01 and its refit, but can't deny the beauty of the movie era 1701 and Reliant from Wrath of Khan. I think mine is the movie era Enterprise, the classic, the TOS movie era Enterprise, the refit that we first see in Star Trek the Motion Picture. I love that design of the Enterprise so much. I also really, really like um, the Strange New Worlds version of the Enterprise. That's gorgeous. I love it so much. So those two probably are kind of fighting tooth and nail for whatever my favorite is. But I will say this as far as the NXO one, I like the NXO one a lot. I really like the interior design though. I love the sets on Enterprise. I love the look. I love the way they achieved kind of like a submarine-ish aesthetic for it. I really, really like that. But yeah, in terms of like ship design, like for externally, uh, the the TOS movie era Enterprise is my favorite. The Very Tired, some random geek. Sunday, my friends Linaquin and Naz the Nico had an emergency plumbing situation. Plastic bags and duct tape as a temporary fix are only so temporary. The water wasn't usable until it was fixed. Sucks when you can't cook because all your dishes are dirty and you can't clean them. I did a stream on Sunday to try and raise some money for them. They thankfully got the $500 bill covered, they think. To add insult to injury, they've wanted to raise money for fun stuff. Their anniversary is next week, as well as LQ's birthday, but no money for fun stuff for them, just bills and food, and an emergency on top of their poverty. Meanwhile, Joanna Roberts is having her end of month woes, no food and no money for food until her next SSDI check, normally on the first of the month, but March 1st is a Saturday, so who knows? And yet some folks wonder why I hate capitalism. They probably don't have disabled friends suffering from poverty like I do. I mean, you might be surprised. We like to think that just because someone has a personal connection to a bad situation, that would make them more empathetic to people in that situation, but unfortunately that's not always the case. And as always, I'll mention it at the end of the stream like I do typically as well, but please make use of the links that some random geek shares in the chat, and also you can find all of those links for the people he mentions in this question and other people, two other friends of ours who need a helping hand, at charitylinks.page. Manuel, hi Steve. This is my first submission to the Ask Away this year. If I recall correctly, the year already feels so long. So, belated Happy New Year, even though it is anything but so far, at least looking into politics. We just had our general elections on Sunday, and the far right AFD is second place with 20% of the votes. At first place is the Conservative Party. I recently joined the Green Party in my state to get more involved into politics, apart from the financial support I was already giving. Concerning the situation in the US, I would like to ask you about the resistance against the Trump regime and how it is going. There is not much media coverage in Germany about that, so I wanted to ask you about your insights. Since I'm on vacation during the live stream, I'm looking forward to your response in the VOD on YouTube. As always, thanks for all your content. Wishing you all the best, Manuel. Well, thank you very much for your continued support and for your question. Happy belated New Year to you too. The resistance is, I would describe it as continuing to gather momentum, which is a little frustrating because every time Trump, this time especially, this last month or so, especially that Trump has been officially in office for a second term, it seems like on an almost daily basis, he has done something utterly horrendous that has led to yet another trickle of previous supporters of his, or people who were not supporters of his, or but who did not really take the threat of him seriously, kind of waking up and going, oh shit, this is serious. And I appreciate that. I'm glad that they are, coming to a clearer level of consciousness about just exactly how deep in the shit we are. But I also have to kind of wonder, like, well, what took so long? Like, what was it about this particular offense that made you think, oh shit, this is serious, and the other million things weren't enough? But anyway, the problem with the resistance at this point is that unless we are talking about like actual armed insurrection against the government, and I don't think we're anywhere close to that point yet, our options are fairly limited, because the American electorate, at least the American electorate that saw fit to participate in the election this last time, or was able to participate in the election last time, was not, unceremoniously kicked off the voter rolls at the last second or voter suppressed in some other way. They saw fit in their infinite wisdom to return to power Donald Trump and to also give the Republican Party majorities in both houses of our national legislature. So the amount of effective resistance that Democrats and other progressives or aligned people who are against Trump and the Republicans can do at the moment is pretty limited. The game plan right now, as far as I see it, is to try and hold as much ground as we possibly can, try to slow Trump down as much as we can, politically, legislatively, while also continuing to use our voices to speak out and speak up as much as we can and about what is going on and why it's something we need to all be very concerned about and worried about and eager to get involved to stop. And then hopefully we survive to the midterm elections, and we actually have midterm elections, and we can start to claw back some of what has been lost. So, I mean, the resistance is it's not in a great place at the moment, but, there's nothing, there's really very little, if anything, that they could be doing right now that I'm angry that they're not doing, other than like rhetorical stuff and just symbolic stuff. Like, I'm still pissed that a single Democrat has voted for any of Trump's cabinet nominees or legislation or anything. Like, I think the Democrats should be completely freezing Trump and the Republicans out across the board. And they've done that on certain things, but so I don't know. The resistance is The coward, some random geek. Now, this is Geek's second question because Geek is both a member and a patron, for those of you who are wondering. In general, the rule is only one question per customer. But if you are both a patron and a member, if you want, you can send in 2 questions. A while ago, I banned someone from my Twitch chat. We had a discussion about many different things, including policing. This is a certain liberal that said Michael Brown wasn't murdered, it was self-defense. I had to block them in DMs and on social media because they were still watching my stream and blowing up my messages, commenting on my posts, saying, "Do I have to comment here to get you to talk to me?" While I was still streaming, they asked me, "Do you feel powerful now? You fear the facts and me calling you out on your BS. You fear my positions, hence why you blocked me. You are a coward." Whenever this viewer gets mad at me, they would sometimes compare me to Hitler. So am I a coward or Hitler? Because sometimes I just don't want to debate a case of police brutality and murder, like with Michael Brown. Did Michael Brown reach for the cop's gun? I don't know. That is what the cop said. But I still that convenient that the cop story includes that. Well, of course not. No, the person that you're describing here is someone who you should have blocked. If there's any place you haven't blocked them yet, you should block them there too. Anyway, I mean, if I ever block somebody and then somehow they contact me through some other means and they say something like that, if they, "Oh, do I have to comment here to get you to talk to me? Do you feel big now? Do you feel powerful now?" Block. Fuck you. You don't have a right to talk to me, especially on my own platform. You don't have a fucking right to talk to me. If I don't want to talk to you, I'm not going to talk to you. And I don't even need a good fucking reason. But the fact that you're being such an asshole and such a pushy little shit about it and such an entitled little shit about it, how dare you not talk to me? How dare you not debate me about this? Are you too afraid of the truth? Fuck you. That's what I say to you. And that's what you said to them. And that's what you should have said. Fuck them. It's your channel. It's your show. It's your whatever platforms you have control over. If you decide they're being a nuisance and they're wasting your time or they're insulting you or just trying to pick a fight with you or whatever the fuck they're doing, that has made you decide that your platform that you control is better off without them, that's your decision. That's your call. And as far as I can tell from this question, you made the right call, and good for you. Robert Willows 118. Anton passed away tragically years ago, but that crew hasn't had another film since then. If they do, how would you like them to address the character Chekhov? Would you kill him off, or would you say write him out by giving him a promotion on another ship? I mean, I guess it depends on what kind of movie they want to make. I feel like if they kill off the character, that's pretty heavy and that's pretty depressing because everybody would know that they killed off the character because the actor died in real life, and that would be kind of a bummer. Um, I would maybe just have somebody mention in a line of dialogue that they just heard from Chekhov, and he's doing well on his new assignment on the starship, whatever, but he misses, he says the bunks on the Enterprise are softer or whatever. Like, just put in just a line of dialogue to establish that he's not here, he's somewhere else, and then move on with the rest of the movie. Not Don't dwell on it too much, but just acknowledge the character and acknowledge that the character is still alive and just he's off doing something somewhere else, and that's why we're not going to see him. Christian Hurst. Hi, Steve. I'm a longtime member, and I really appreciate that you always take the time to read my questions, even when they might be a bit irritating. I recently published a novel that has been well received and is Trek adjacent. If you'd prefer not to include my shameless self promotion, feel free to skip the next bit. For anyone interested, just Google Lily Starling sci fi book or search by my name on any platform. I have a question. Do you ever read pulp sci fi that isn't Trek related? Until recently, I mostly read hard sci fi, Star Trek books, and nonfiction. That and the occasional classic. A few years ago, I branched out, and now I love non Star Trek pulp sci fi almost as much as anything else. Thanks for the videos and the laughs. Stay safe and stay awesome, Christian. Well, thank you very much. And I'm happy to help you plug your book, and congratulations. Um, I don't have time to read much of anything these days. I honestly, even though I've been a Star Trek fan my whole life, I've really only read a handful of Star Trek novels. I've read a lot of Star Trek comics over the years, um, but I've never really gotten super into the novels. I've read some of them, but nowhere near, any sort of like a significant number. And like I said, I don't have a whole lot of time to read much of anything, unfortunately. Um, so I haven't read much pulp sci-fi or Star Trek or anything else for a while. And I mean, I would imagine I would probably really dig pulp sci-fi if I had more of a chance to read some, because I mean it's one of my favorite genres in film. Um, so I would imagine the literature would be fun too. But no, I haven't had much time to read it or anything else, unfortunately. But again, congrats on your novel and continued success, and thank you for being a supporter, Steve. Hi, Steve. I have a weird question for you. Do you ever get annoyed at adult fans who can't handle that something they like is typically aimed at children? I'm, of course, talking about Star Wars fans and their insistence that every future project should be like Andor, or as I like to call it, baby's first political thriller. Oh, I'm right there with you. I'm kind of over projects like this that take things aimed at kids that also have adult fans, which is completely okay, but have to remind us that they're dark and mature. While Marvel and other comics have never exclusively been for kids, especially since the 80s or so, the marketing for the new Daredevil stuff putting TVMA kind of rubs me the wrong way. I love R rated projects. My favorite movie of all time is Predator, and my favorite show is The Sopranos, but it's okay to like something that isn't the darkest thing ever. Am I crazy? No. I think you have a couple of ideas kind of jostling together in the question, though. No, obviously, it's perfectly fine to not like dark stuff. It's perfectly fine to like both. I'm kind of in the same boat. A lot of my favorite stuff is really adult and really grim and really dark. And also, there's stuff that I absolutely love that is not remotely dark, you know, and that isn't, and that is in some cases is made for a younger audience or a younger target audience that I still enjoy because it's smart and clever and heartfelt and whatever. Um, it's fine to like all sorts of different things. Um, and it's also fine for series or franchises or whatever you want to call them to target different audiences if they have multiple plates in the air at once, right? It's fine to make, like you're using Star Wars as an example. An example that I would usually default to would be something like Batman, because there's so much Batman stuff all the time in terms of TV and movies and comics and books and everything, right? It's perfectly fine to have a Batman cartoon that's aimed at little kids and a Batman cartoon maybe aimed at an older audience, and a movie that's like a hard PG-13 or even an R, and a TV show that's kind of in the middle somewhere. Like, there's nothing wrong with trying to reach different demographics with different projects. just because my personal favorite Batman has mostly been the more dark, sort of serious stuff, that doesn't mean it all needs to be that way. And if it's not that way, then it's wrong. Just like you, my favorite Star Wars stuff is the original trilogy, and my favorite stuff for the most part from the newer stuff has been more lighthearted, right? I don't know if you could really call The Last Jedi lighthearted, but it's not like super grim and gritty and edgy and grim dark and you know what I mean? It's kind of a general audience movie. And my favorite Star Wars thing since The Last Jedi has been Skeleton Crew, which feels very much like it's aimed at a younger audience. And it's absolutely brilliant and delightful. And I know everybody, I know a lot of people loved Andor. I was not as big of a fan of Andor as a lot of people for various reasons that I've discussed about ad nauseum in other videos. Um, but I mean, I would rather watch Skeleton Crew. I'd rather watch Skeleton Crew 5 times in a row than watch another episode of Andor. That's just my opinion, my taste. Doesn't mean people who feel the opposite are wrong. But it's perfectly fine for Star Wars to be trying out different tones. It's perfectly fine to have a show like Andor and a show like Skeleton Crew and the animated stuff, which I haven't paid any attention to at all, but a lot of people really, really like. And, that's all fine. It's all fine. My rule is it good? Like, I don't give it, I've never cared what something is rated. You say it bothers you that the new Daredevil show is TVMA. I have never cared what something is rated. I loved the Daredevil show on Netflix. I hope that this revival of it on Disney Plus is good. That's all I care about. I don't give a fuck if it's rated TVMA or TVPG or whatever. Just make it good. As long as it's good, I'm there. Jeremy Pickett. What does the nearly constant use of unstable / problematic time travel, Arca, due to the general populace, I guess that's supposed to say, in Trek's timeline? Do they even know? Wouldn't everyone want to travel back and give deceased loved ones a hug? Well, that's why they got to keep a lid on that shit. I mean, I would guess that the general population doesn't know, just isn't aware of it, and certainly isn't aware of how frequently it occurs. I mean, that's one of the main jokes in my Starfleet jobs video I did about the historian, which you know is a little serious. It's not the funniest one of those I've ever done, but one of the gags in it is this just the idea that people in the part of Star Trek that it's satirizing, I think, most centrally is the idea that there's so much time travel in Star Trek shows and movies. It happens so often, and there's so much tinkering and meddling with the timeline that really, like, basically there is no one correct timeline. The timeline is constantly changing because people are always going back and changing shit. So the idea of having a constant linear history is a little ridiculous. But no, I think the general public probably would not be super aware of it or of how frequently it's so, because think about it. If somebody goes back in time and changes history, most people are not going to be aware of it, because if history changes in the past, then that change will catch up to your point in the timeline, and your memory will be altered to reflect whatever the new timeline is. So most people aren't going to know. General Contact Unit Problem Child. I watched your 3 Bad Habits That Are Killing Democracy vid and want to comment on your left-right comparisons. I think it's easier to take a long-term approach to politics if, 1, short-term failure doesn't personally harm you, 2, you're willing to compromise your ethics to achieve your goals. If you oppose abortion, nothing bad happens to you personally if it remains legal. But if you want Medicare for all, every day without it puts you or your loved ones at risk. With that immediate anxiety, it's hard to focus on some hypothetical future with free Medicare that you may never see. The right never feel morally conflicted about voting for a candidate in the way we do when, say, Harris supports Israel. They have brutal ends justify the means approach to achieve their goals that's largely devoid of short-term compassion. I'll admit we probably need to be a lot more pragmatic about who we choose to support or vote, but I wouldn't want to emulate that approach, at least not entirely. Thoughts? Well, no, yeah, I agree with you that I don't think the Democrats or progressives more broadly should be as ruthless as Republicans, but it would be nice if we had a little more of that. It would be nice if we were a little more goal oriented and a little more difficult to knock off of to get knocked off the path. You know, if we were willing to see the forest for the trees a little bit more and say, yes, this candidate is imperfect. This candidate is maybe even offensive to me in many ways. I am not supportive of their position on this, this, and this. I am downright offended by their position on this. But as I have personally said in videos many times, recognizing that in the end, especially when we're talking about the presidential election, but this, applies to Senate and congressperson and state and local elections as well. In most cases, it's going to come down to two people. The person who will occupy this office after this election is going to be one of two people, and which one of those two people is better? And I guarantee you one of them is at least a little better than the other one. And it's almost always the Democrat that is better than the Republican. And at the presidential level, I would say at this point, and the congressional and senatorial level as well, I would say it's almost always, if not 99.999 ad infinitum% of the time, it's going to be the Democrat that is preferable, clearly preferable to the Republican. So you need to vote for the Democrat. You need to be pragmatic about it, like Republicans are about pragmatically voting for Republicans. But no, I would not want us to be as ruthless and as, brutally ends justify the means as they are. But I would like us to be a bit tougher as far as that goes. And by the way, and I agree, you have a good point about it is easier to take the long-term approach if the issue at hand isn't personally affecting your life. I think that's a good point. JDC is watching too much TV. Hey, Steve, hope you're doing well. I was going to ask a politics question, but thought better of it. Do you watch Doctor Who? If so, any thoughts on the most recent and perhaps only season with Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson? I thought they had some great episodes, especially 73 Yards, Dot and Bubble, and the delightful Rogue. But the writers completely flubbed the two-part finale, alas. But what franchise can resist nostalgia? Cheers. Well, I can't comment on the most recent season, other than to say I did see a trailer for another season with Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson, and I think a new companion as well. So it will not be. He will not be a one-season Doctor. There'll be at least 2 seasons. But I haven't watched any of that. I am still back in the I just completely blanked on his name. Matt Smith. I'm still back in the Matt Smith years. I haven't gotten beyond that yet. I mean, what I have seen, I have really liked, but Doctor Who has been one of those things where I've watched it in sort of stretches, and then I've just gone off onto other things, not because I didn't like it, but just because I just got distracted by something else, or I didn't have time to watch it anymore, or whatever. So I would like to get back to it eventually, and hopefully at one point catch up and be able to say I've seen all of the the new stuff, the revived version of the show. But at this point, I can't say that. But what I've seen so far, I have mostly really enjoyed. Dana! Discussion about the town hall in Coeur d'Alene last weekend has been on my social media feed a lot. Nobody stepped in to prevent the sheriff and security guards from restraining Dr. Teresa Borenpole and physically dragging her out of the auditorium. A few people did try to approach, but most just watched or took out their cell phones to record. Many of the posts have given suggestions for how to step in to prevent someone from being detained in a similar situation. However, somewhat ironically, the lack of support for Dr. Borenpole and the unjust arrest on flimsy charges may have given her a more sympathetic figure and given additional weight to her story. So, question 1, if, hypothetically, we were in a situation like that, and I shot my mouth off and they grabbed me, would you let them cart me off so that my tears might encourage others to take action? And for something less bleak, question 2, when you're asked which of your many videos you're most proud of, which one comes to mind first and why? Well, for question 1, yes, I would let them cart you off because that's clearly what you want. And I get chills thinking of the scene you would make. That would be quite something. So no, I would allow you to fulfill your destiny and be carted off. And then I would be there, hopefully, right after that to the police station or wherever they dragged you off to bail you out and make sure you were okay. And for question 2, the video I'm most proud of is an episode of Steve and Stuffy from back in the old days, um, the pre-divorce version of the show, and it's called Steve and Stuffy Get Their Story Straight, I think, and it is my homage to Rashomon, where the animals have some through some chain of events. My favorite coffee cup has been broken, and each of the animals who was there has a different version of the events that led up to the cup being broken. And I really love the way it's structured. I love the different stories that the animals tell. I think it's really funny. I think the final little reveal is very clever. And this is me praising my own work, so I mean, take it with a grain of salt. Self praise is cheap praise, but I have always been hugely proud of that video. I think it's really well put together and well written and well performed, by myself and my now ex-wife, who was always amazing as the voice of the characters that she played. And yeah, I'm just really proud of that one. So I think that's probably the video that I'm the proudest of. Agent Meister, who wishes he didn't know now what he didn't know back then. Hey, Peldor Joy, Steve. I asked you about the Transformers once, and I remember you saying that it was one of the special franchises of your childhood. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Michael Bay's Transformers movies. The first one is, in my opinion, not that bad, good even. It's far from perfect, but I think it has a healthy mix of Spielberg magic and Bay action. But most of what came after has been about as much writing, plot, and character development as a kid smashing two Transformers toys together with infantile toilet humor peppered throughout. The Bumblebee movie and the recent TF1 animated movie are both wonderful breaths of fresh air in a franchise that has shit the bed too often. The biggest sin of the Bay movies is that Optimus, Megatron, and the gang seem to be background characters in their own movie, with most of the attention given, for the most part, to very annoying and even unlikable human characters. But when it comes to movies produced mainly to sell toys, I shouldn't be surprised. Thoughts? I have only seen the first one, and I only watched that because we reviewed it for an episode of Late Seating some years ago. And after I watched that one, I was reassured that I had missed nothing and there was no need for me to be in any hurry to go watch the other Transformers movies. I remember the Bumblebee movie getting good reviews, and I would like to get around to watching that at some point, but I have not seen it. But other than that, no. I mean, I loved the cartoon as a kid, and I had some of the toys as a kid, and yes, it was very special to me, and I have really fond memories of Transformers. Um, but no, I like I said, I was once I saw the trailers and the look of the movies, and I saw that Michael Bay was directing it, I had no interest in seeing it. And after I saw it for Late Seating, I saw the first one. I thought to myself, "Oh, okay, I haven't missed anything." So no, I haven't. I have only a very passing familiarity with the Transformers movies. The Grumpy Monkey. How now, Steve? You seem to know a thing or six about 80s TV, MacGyver, Knight Rider, etc. But have you any thoughts, one way or the other, on the A Team? This was a staple of my youth, and while it could be described as somewhat formulaic, it was always great fun. The chemistry between the four leads was great. It had a legendary theme tune, and who could forget that beautiful van? Did you watch it? If so, do you have a favorite character? Hannibal, B.A., Face, Murdoch? And did you see the 2010 movie? I did and loved every second of it. Finally, apropos of nothing, if you should meet with an inaccessible cave anywhere in your area to which one could retire from all talk of Trump, his flunkies, and testimonials to same, pray let me know of it. We have nothing solitary and deep enough in my part of the world. Well, I will keep my eye out and let you know. I did not see the movie, the A-Team movie, but I did watch the movie. I did watch the show a lot when I was a kid, when it was actually when it was originally being broadcast. I loved that van. I had a toy of that van that was my most prized possession for a certain period of time when I was a child. Um, yeah, I love the A Team. I haven't watched it for a long time. For whatever reason, it has not been one of the shows that I went back and kind of reclaimed as an adult, like I did with MacGyver or Knight Rider or Magnum or The Incredible Hulk or a bunch of other shows from the 80s that I loved at the time. Maybe I should rectify that. I should go back and dive back into the A Team and refresh my memory because I loved it as a kid. My favorite character was BA. I'm a big Mr. T fan. So yeah, my BA Baracus was my favorite A Team character. But you're right, the chemistry between them was great. They were all great. It was formulaic, but it was formulaic in a really fun way. So yeah, I need to make a note to rediscover the A Team at some point. Keir is back. After the election, I said, fuck you all, and unsubscribed from the American hellscape and wished you all well on your inevitable slide into the purge. I have deleted everything except Blue Sky and only kept yourself in the political sphere because of how much I enjoy your Star Trek content. I'm 50 next year, around the same time your country should be 250. I've always wanted to be there for a huge joined celebration, but that's not going to happen. My wife was denied a visa last time Trump was in office. I doubt it'll be easier this time. So, Steve, what's the biggest disappointment in your life, except the obvious, caused by things out of your control, and how did you get over it? Oh, man. I mean, the biggest disappointment of my life, I mean, it would be Trump being reelected. I mean, how could there be a bigger disappointment than that? Trump being elected the first time was disappointing. Trump being reelected the second time was not only disappointing, it was like, oh, okay, so we're just chronically bad. Like we're bad in an incurable way, right? I mean, because there's no there's no explanation for this country electing Donald Trump a second time, after the first time went the way it did. And then after we got 4 years of not that to compare it to, and then we said, let's go back to that. Like there's no way of explaining that other than we're just in a chronically incurably bad country. So that was probably the biggest disappointment. On a personal note, I don't know. When I was, I think probably 10 or 11, my dad and I were supposed to go to an air show down at the Air Force Base near Washington, D.C., and then we didn't get to go. Oh, no, that's not true. No, it wasn't. We did go to the Air Force Base. We did go to the air show. We were supposed to go to the Goddard Space Flight Center, and that didn't happen for some unrelated reason. I can't remember what it was. Some kind of event happened, not like an attack or anything, nothing terrible, but just there was some circumstance that caused the tour we were going to go on to be canceled, and we didn't get to go. That was very, very devastating at the time. But no, this is the Trump thing. It's the Trump thing. Brian McKinley, who finally finished his 4th novel. Look at all the novelists that are submitting questions this time. Congratulations to the novelists. I'm happy about my accomplishments, Steve, but that's about it. Things keep getting worse at an accelerated rate, and I honestly don't know how much of it I can stand. For context, I suffer from depression with the capital D and can very easily spiral into misery with small provocation or none at all. I know you don't advocate for violence, but I can't get there anymore. I want all these pieces of shit in human form put against a wall and shot. I worry that some form of armed insurrection is what it's going to take to stop this slide into dictatorship. My question is, how do you see this playing out? What allows you to maintain some sanity? I mean, I mentioned armed insurrection in response to a previous question. I don't think we're close to that at this point. But here's the thing. I don't know. I'm just a guy on YouTube who watches the news and reads, the internet like everybody else. I have no special insight. So I have no idea. I would like to think that we can resolve things and fix what needs to be fixed without armed insurrection, but I honestly don't know. And how do I maintain my sanity with that uncertainty? Like I mentioned in a previous answer, again, there are times when I just try not to think about it. There are times when I feel like I need to take a step back and unplug for a little bit and think about something else or do something else. And so I do that. And then when I feel like I'm ready to come back and pay attention to politics again, or that I need to come back and pay attention to politics again, that's what I do. Today, for example, my plan for today was to make a video about Gene Hackman. And I did that, but I realized before I did that I also had to make a video about the Trump-Zelensky Oval Office fiasco. because that just, I mean, I was white hot with rage about that. And I thought, okay, I need to talk about this, right? I need to get this out. Um, so, you know, I felt like I was kind of pulled back in. Like I hadn't planned to make a political video today, but I felt like I had no choice. I was, you know, it was impossible for me to not say something about it. So that's an instance of me saying to myself, okay, you're back in this now today. I mean, obviously I'm never away from it for very long, but um, yeah, that's how you maintain sanity. You back away from it when you have to, or when you have the opportunity to, and then you jump back in when you feel like it's been enough time, or when you feel like you have no choice. Mike Collins, we know that Assignment Earth was a backdoor pilot that never got to series, but watching it again, I'd be fascinated to know if you'd been given the job of showrunner, how would you see the series arc being developed? Stories involving Cold War plots. It feels kind of like the Trek version of Man from U.N.C.L.E. Let's pretend season 2 of Picard never happened, as that added nothing to the concept. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it would have been like a spy show with sci-fi stuff, you know, like a spy show, but instead of like, you know, Cold War US versus Russia, or US versus Soviets, it would have been Gary Seven versus time travelers, or Gary Seven versus aliens, or it would have been something like that. Like I haven't given it enough thought to have like a coherent pitch for you. Like if I was a showrunner for a full season of that show, but that I feels like that was the concept, like spy show, but with aliens and um, that sort of thing. It is interesting to imagine, because if that had gone to series, that would have been the first spin-off of Star Trek. And the way the Star Trek franchise went, as it turns out, is they just kept doing new Star Trek shows. Like the spin-offs of Star Trek are all just variations of Star Trek. You know, Star Trek, the animated series, Star Trek, the Next Generation, Star Trek on a space station, Star Trek on a different ship that's lost on the other side of the galaxy, Star Trek from before Star Trek. You know, like, uh, and if Assignment Earth had actually taken hold, we might have been in a world where there would still be a Star Trek franchise, but it wouldn't all be Star Trek shows. It would be shows that are kind of in the same fictional world of Star Trek, but they're not all clones of Star Trek. And there's something about that, even though I'm very happy with the Star Trek franchise that we ended up getting, there is something very tantalizing about that possibility of what if they had made like a series of what if all these shows had been successful and they had made a series of shows that were all sort of spun off of each other or related to each other, but they were all different. They weren't just all variations on Star Trek. It's a fascinating idea to sort of ponder. Andy Lawler, who wonders why nobody wants to impress Jodie Foster anymore, which is something that was brought up during the Wednesday live stream. And it was not, I realize it was not a reference that Dana picked up on right away, because she, unlike all of the rest of us, is scornful of American history, utterly scornful. Hey, Steve. I encountered a thought experiment that I wanted to share here. At your current age, in your current physical condition, with your current skill set, in which of the big four North American sports would you survive longest in a regular season game before being seriously injured, maimed, or killed? You, plucked from the stands to fill a position today, not you when you were younger, not if you had years to practice and work out, you as you're reading this. In the pre-COVID world, I would have said ice hockey. I'd played recreationally for years. I'd have been fourth line and never scored a goal, but I was a decent defenseman. I used to be able to take and dish out hits. These days, however, in my disabled state, I'd have to go with baseball. I'd be struck out with 3 pitches the entire game, and I'd have to play second base or center field, but I would survive mostly intact. What say you? Thanks, and have a great weekend, everybody. Oh, baseball. No, yeah, baseball. Baseball is the only sport of the major sports in the United States. Baseball is the only sport that I could even make a passing attempt at playing. And that's not to say that baseball is the easiest sport. It's not. It's maybe of all the major sports, I maintain it's probably the most difficult to play well, and to play well consistently, because it demands such a broad skill set. You have to be able to excel at so many different things in order to be a good baseball player consistently. But if you're just looking to survive the game, Baseball's where it's at. um, so yeah, I would say baseball. Yeah. I mean, yeah, even basketball, like on the court with actual talented professional basketball players, I would get run over. You know, like there's yeah, I don't know how long I would last on a basketball court. Um, Football, obviously, I'd be dead, and also I would protest. I would not even want to play on moral grounds. Um, Hockey, probably same thing as basketball. I would just get fucking destroyed physically. So baseball's where it's at, buddy. Isaiah Taylor. So here's a Star Trek captain's question. Many moons ago, I came across the Wikipedia article about the 1991 Gulf War, the war my dad fought in, but that's neither here nor there. And I came across a sentence that asked the reader on which Star Trek captain would have handled the crisis/war. Kirk would have told Saddam to go climb a tree, and Picard would try diplomacy till the absolute end. What do you think, Steve? How would any of the captains have handled other crises during the 90s? Would Picard try to see past Randy Weaver's rabid racisms to justify his separation from the society on the basis of self-determination? Would Jellicoe advise his tactical officer Janet Reno to fire photon torpedoes in a display pattern over Waco to frighten Koresh into giving in? What crisis would you like to see resolved by a Star Trek captain? I would love to have seen any of those crises from the 90s resolved by Captain Sisko. Because Captain Sisko, especially like post-season 4 or 5 Captain Sisko, when Captain Sisko had run out of fucks to give, and he was like, I do not have time for this bullshit. Like, those motherfuckers are coming out of that compound or else, right? I don't have time to sit around and wait on these fucking people. The correct answer is always Captain Sisko. And if he was here now and he could do something about the current crisis of all of this, that would be fantastic too. Glenn H., who just snuck in under the 1,000-character limit. Congratulations, Glenn. Hey, Steve. I consider myself an avid Star Trek fan. I've seen every movie and show, and with Paramount Plus, I've even kept up with all the new generation of Trek, good and bad. I even sat through Section 31 with my eyes firmly rolled back into my head. But I have to confess, I cannot get through Lower Decks. I gritted my teeth through the first episode, and I was puzzled why I didn't enjoy it. I heard it gets better after that, so I attempted episode 2. It did not get better. I turned it off after 10 minutes and have yet to return. Not only did I not find it funny, I find the characters insufferable. I just can't see how everyone loves this show. I know you don't, but you have at least sat through all of the seasons. I can't find the energy to start it up again. Am I being too close-minded? Should I force myself to try and get through it, or should I dump it and admit that I may never enjoy it? Anyway, hope you have a great show and look forward to your answer. P.S. Fuck Trump and Musk. No, you're not being closed-minded. If you watched, if the reason that if you didn't like the show because there were gay characters, that's being closed-minded. If you didn't like the show because one of the writers said something you didn't like a few years ago and you carry a grudge against them and you're determined not to give any of their work a chance ever, that's closed-minded. If you watched the show and you just didn't like it and you decided on the basis of not liking what you watched that you didn't want to watch anymore, that's not being closed-minded at all. No, you just didn't like it. That's completely fine. As you pointed out, I didn't like it either. Now, I will say, and I know a lot of people who do like the show, or at least who like the show better than I did, will say that it gets better as it goes on. I have the opposite opinion. I think that first episode that you could barely get through is one of the best episodes of the series. I think it takes a precipitous dive in terms of quality after the first season. I thought the first season was all right. Most of my positive memories of the show, most of the bits from the show that I can remember that I like are from the first season or the second season. There was some stuff from the second season that I remember liking too, but from that point on, I mean, I think there might be one episode from past the second season that I really enjoyed, and it was the one where, and this won't mean anything to you because you haven't watched it, which is fine, but the episode where Peanut Hamper tries to start a new life on the planet of bird people, what's a mathematically perfect redemption or something is the title. I like that episode. Very, very above average for a Lower Decks episode. There were a couple of genuinely funny bits in it, which is not the norm for me with Lower Decks. It almost never makes me laugh. But other than that episode, like pretty much everything from post season 2 is just a total loss for me. Like I don't think it's funny. You're right. I don't find the characters insufferable, but I don't care about them at all. Like they could have all been tortured to death on the last episode and I wouldn't have cared. I wouldn't have shed a tear. Oh well. Oh well. You know, they pulled Boimler's intestines out 1 inch at a time and he died screaming and begging for mercy. Oh well. Sucks to be him. Like I don't care. I don't care about any of them. But back to your question. If you don't like the show, you don't like the show. And if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to watch it. And you're not being closed-minded and you're not depriving yourself of anything. It's a TV show. If you decide to go back and give it another shot at some point, great. Maybe you'll get through it. Maybe you won't. That's okay. But no, I would say don't force yourself to watch it if you really don't want to, and don't be hard on yourself for not liking it. You watched it and you didn't like it. It's okay. John Burns. So, Kathleen Kennedy. Oh, you mean one of the most successful producers in the history of Hollywood, who apparently was reported to be retiring, but now I see that actually she's not retiring. I bear no grudge against Kathleen Kennedy. I wish her the best. I have really enjoyed some of her Star Wars stuff. I have not enjoyed all of it, but I have really enjoyed some of it. I think she is not remotely deserving of the bile and hatred that has been directed her way by misogynists and racists and just grumpy, disgruntled, entitled little nerd boys on the internet. So I wish her nothing but success in the future, whatever that future is, whether it's continuing to run Lucasfilm or whether she does decide to retire at some point. There you go. All the best to Kathleen Kennedy from me. Northside Nirvana. Steve, usually I'm good for a political question or thought. However, I'm sure all of us, or at least some of us, are burnt out on that particular hamster wheel. Although it's important that all of us continue to be aware of what's going on and should all have some constituent plan to try our best to explain to our friends and family why voting in every election, in every race, every time is so vitally important. I digress. My question is, knowing what a baseball fan you are, or at least were, would you be interested in a full-length biopic about the full life and times of Harry Carey, the famed baseball announcer most closely associated with the Chicago Cubs? An in-depth, true telling, not a tired caricature. Do you believe that kind of film would be well received? Thoughts? Well, I would not be interested in a biopic about the full life and times of him, because I would not be interested in a biopic about the full life and times of anyone. I think that's one of the big problems with biopics as a genre, is that the filmmakers feel the need to start from birth and carry it all the way to the death or the present day of the character. I think that's not telling a story. Like a movie, whether it's a biography of a real person or not, a movie should tell a story. So if a writer or a director or somebody researched the life of Harry Carey and found a particular incident in his life or a particular period in his life that they thought would make a great movie that had the possibility for a compelling story, I would be all for that. I think he's a great character from baseball history. I love Harry Carey, one of the great announcers and broadcasters that baseball has ever seen, and obviously a legend in Chicago. Worked for the White Sox and the Cubs, and worked for other teams as well. Like, and he was around. I think he was around for what, 30 years, 40 years, something like that. I mean, he had a tremendous career. So I mean, the idea of a movie about Harry Carey, I mean, again, it depends on the movie, it depends on the story, it depends on all these specifics, but the general idea, sure. Yeah, I'd be interested in a movie about Harry Carey, but a full, birth to death, here's everything that happened in his life biopic. No, but not because of anything to do with Harry Carey, just because I think that's, generally speaking, a bad approach to making a movie. Joe McClory, when I started supporting your channel 9 years ago, I was working for an NGO called the Ark of Fond du Lac. It didn't pay well, but it was and probably will always be the best job I ever had. Helping people live as independently as possible in a world that is not set up for them to do so. As someone who struggled to live off the amount of money they were able to pay me, I can personally attest the organization did not have a lot of waste. It makes me so angry that they have to do a photo shoot with our Republican congressman to beg that he will make a carve out for them. That members felt the need to take a trip to Ron Johnson's office to demand he do his damn job and stop Elon from declaring their educational funding as fraud and waste. That instead of being able to have events based that bring joy to their members and staff, will have to panhandle to the same fucks that voted in King Trump and his oligarchs for tax-deductible donations. If anyone can please support orgs like the ARC. Yes, if anyone can, please support orgs like the ARC. Absolutely. These next few years especially will be very important for nonprofit organizations, for charitable organizations. In your local communities, if you can identify and support those organizations directly, I would highly encourage you to do that, because what we have seen is they cannot, and many of these organizations depend for a large part of their funding on federal grants and federal funding of various kinds. And Trump and Elon Musk and that entire administration have made it clear that they cannot be depended on for that. That they view that sort of thing as a waste of money, because they view the government as something that ought to be a profit generating entity, and the people who should be profiting from it are them. That's the way they see it. They see it as a grift. They see it as an opportunity to strip mine this country and line their own pockets. And, giving away money, as they see it, giving away money to charity, giving away money to organizations to help the disabled or to help the elderly or to help the poor or whatever, that's a waste of money. That's not generating any profit for us. We can't be wasting money on that. So if you can possibly support those kinds of organizations in your community directly, I would highly encourage you to do so, because they are going to need your help now more than ever. And I would also say, in a similar vein, public radio and public TV stations. If you are at all able to support them directly through financial support, I would encourage you to do that, because same boat. They, we cannot count on the Trump administration to continue to support public broadcasting in this country. And now more than ever, it is incredibly important that continue to exist. M.W. Ridra wants to take a nap for maybe a year. Hey, Steve, hope your week has gone better than mine. Decided to go with a lighthearted question today. If DC and Marvel had a Batman crossover, which Marvel villain do you think it would be the most interesting for Batman to go up against? If all of Marvel is too wide a net and you find yourself suffering choice paralysis, feel free to limit yourself to Spider-Man's rogues gallery. Why do you think that would be the most interesting choice? Well, I mean, Green Goblin is right there, and Norman Osborn can kind of be looked at as sort of a dark version of Bruce Wayne. He's also he's a rich guy, but he's an evil rich guy as opposed to a good guy rich guy. That would be interesting. I think they did a Batman Punisher crossover about 25 years ago, where the villain was Jigsaw, and I remember that being pretty good. And a lot of the Punisher villains would also be functional as Batman villains, because Punisher and Batman are similar in a lot of ways. Doc Ock might be fun. Again, you could sort of do like a face-off. It would be Doc Ock, the scientist, the genius, versus Batman's intellect. It'd be interesting to do kind of like a battle of the minds there. Plus, Batman throwing batarangs at a guy with mechanical octopus arms. What's not to like about that? Or hey, you could do Batman versus Magneto, and every time he throws a batarang, Magneto just goes whoop. How's Batman going to fight Magneto if he can't throw batarangs? And he's going to have to take off that utility belt too, and anything else that he has that's got metal in it, because Magneto will just be like, wah, boom, like, come on. So you'd have to be creative in writing it to make it make sense and have it be plausible. But no, yeah, any one of those. Jan, hi and happy last day of February. Here's hoping we can continue to survive as we enter a new month, Before I forget, I so love your voters' remorse hotline video. I have to watch it again. Your facial expressions are priceless. My question is, where can I find a flag like the one you fly representing the values we aspire to? As seen in your video, Democrats need to be fearless. Of course, I will not spend any money today, but I'd love to fly that for my neighbors to see. And just food for thought, a combination of cocaine and ketamine defines certain behavior in an oligarchic narcissist. The cocaine is the adder in the behavior. Take care, Steve. Well, I think you mean the flag. Let me switch over to my full camera shot for a second here. The flag back there behind me, that says "In Our America, Love Wins." And if you want your own version of that, and I mean, that's obviously that's not my design. I bought that just like you can buy it. And if you want to get your own copy of it, you can go to the website inouramericalovewins.com. Or I think if you just Google "In Our America, Love Wins," and that'll take you to the website of the organization that designed and sells the flag. And you can buy it as a flag, as a yard sign. I think they might sell t-shirts. They sell a couple of different things with the design on it. And there's also a pride version of it, like a rainbow version that emulates a pride flag. That has the same, the same message on it. So it's, yeah, I would, if you like it, I would recommend that you go get yourself one. Because I've had mine for years, and I'm very happy to have it. Yeah, "In Our America, Love Wins" is what you want to look up, and it'll take you to the website. Kara the Tolkien Nerd. Hi, Steve. I already asked about the influence of Gene L. Kuhn on Star Trek. But for those of us in the know, the Kuhn-Pevney episodes are also some of the most memorable. Excluding City on the Edge of Forever / Amok Time, we know those are two of the best. Which of the remainder of those episodes is your favorite best of this era? Admittedly, it's difficult to choose between Journey to Babel, A Taste of Armageddon, but I would like to hear your own thoughts. Well, Amok Time is not a Gene Kuhn episode. At least Gene Kuhn didn't write it. Theodore Sturgeon wrote it. And of course, Gene Kuhn didn't write City on the Edge of Forever either. Harlan Ellison was the credited writer and wrote the original teleplay, and then it was rewritten. I mean, Kuhn might have done a rewrite on it, but I think the main writer who did a rewrite was Dorothy Fontana. And I think Roddenberry himself did a pass on it as well. But anyway, my favorite of the Gene Kuhn, Joe Pevney episodes. The Devil in the Dark. That's a Kuhn Pevney. And by the way, very, very astute of you to single out that combination. Because, yeah, Pevney did direct a lot of episodes, and many of the episodes Pevney directed are among the very best shows Star Trek ever did. And a lot of the best Pevney episodes are also episodes where Gene Kuhn is at least one of the credited writers. So that's a very astute observation that combination yielded some really, really great stuff. But no, I Devil in the Dark. Gene Kuhn wrote it, and Joseph Pevney directed it, and it is fantastic. One of the best Star Trek episodes ever. So that would be my choice. The Horta episode, The Devil in the Dark. Sia Mac, who stands with Ukraine. Goddamn right. Greetings, Steve. Well, we're now aligned with Putin and against Europe. I didn't think I'd live to see it. As of this time, only 2 Republicans have called today's shit show a disaster and a win for Putin. I'm focused on 2026, but the president largely controls foreign policy. There's no repairing the damage being done to our relationships around the world. No question. Just heartbreak. Well, I'm right there with you, my friend. I'm right there with you. And yet, I have not seen very many Republicans question or object to what happened. In fact, I saw fucking Lindsey Graham say that it was a bad day for Putin. He said, "Oh, after Putin watched that, he must be quaking in his boots." What did you watch, Lindsey? Like, what did you watch? Did you, the one where Trump was trying to direct sympathy toward Putin for the investigation into Russian interference in our election? Is that what Putin's supposed to be quaking in his boots because of that? Because Trump was like kissing his ass in front of the president of Ukraine? What is Putin supposed to be worried about exactly? Yeah, no, they're a fucking joke. They're all a fucking joke. And the joke's on us, unfortunately. Russell, how much trust and or respect has the rest of the world for the USA now? If they have any, it's more than we deserve. Probably not very much. And just based on the performance of our president and our federal government in general, we don't deserve any. So good for them if they don't respect us. They shouldn't. Mike the Curious. Steve, how about a quick update on how you feel about aliens? You know, the ones from space. UAPs. I have seen very convincing radar data. What they can do is real. Are they? I still have not seen any evidence that has remotely convinced me that whatever UAPs are, they are aliens. No. I mean, there may be evidence that UAPs exist and that there are things doing something to cause those radar images or to do what is happening in those recordings. But is there any reason for me to believe that they're aliens? No, no. No. So how I feel about aliens is the same as the last time I expressed this opinion. It would be nice to think that there is life elsewhere in the galaxy. I hope there is. But is there any evidence that it has visited our planet or is actively visiting our planet now? Not that I've ever seen. Brian Baker, Steve, I love my country, but hate my government. Trump is a child who can't see past the dotted line. Anyway, I will turn 60 before your next Ask Away, and I wanted to know if you had a birthday that bothered you because of the number of candles on the cake. And do you have any celebration or ritual for your birthday? No and no. I mean, first of all, I don't actually, I haven't had a literal cake with candles on it since I was younger than a teenager, probably. I never make a big deal about my birthday. I have never made a big deal about my birthday since I've been an adult, and for a while before that as well. I mean, if somebody wishes me if somebody knows when my birthday is and wishes me happy birthday, I really appreciate that. I'm grateful for that. But no, I don't make a big deal about it. I've never wanted to like have a party or go out to dinner or do anything special. And I don't do anything special on the day. It's just another day. Whatever my schedule for that day ordinarily is, that's what it is. I do remember my grandfather, my pap, one of his birthdays. He lived to be 74. And I think it was maybe his one of his later 60s birthdays when I came to see him on his birthday and I said, "Hey, Pap, happy birthday." And he said, "Thank you, but you know, you get to be my age. You don't like to see them birthdays come around so often." So, and I've always thought of that as well. But yeah, no, I don't do anything special for my birthday. I don't make a big deal about it at all. But happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you very much. Rusty Ronan. Well, Steve, it's question time again, but before I start, I just have two quick recommendations for that Shakespeare enjoying gentleman from last Ask Away. That is Throne of Blood, Macbeth, and Ron, King Lear, both from the master Kurosawa. I think he'll enjoy them. Now, my question to you, sir, is to be or not to be? That is the question. Thanks again. Until next time. First of all, I second both of those recommendations. Two of my favorite Kurosawa films, especially Throne of Blood. I love Throne of Blood so much. So yes, if you are a Shakespeare fan and you would like to see Shakespeare adapted into the genre of samurai movies, directed by the greatest director who ever made samurai movies, and one of the greatest directors, period, Akira Kurosawa. Yes, Throne of Blood and Ron are both absolutely fantastic. And to be or not to be? To be. It's an easy answer for me. To be or not to be, that is the question. Let me think about it. To be. There you go, Hamlet. The Avenging Arrow. Bit of a lighter question with everything going on. Have you ever seen any of the Arrowverse besides Superman and Lois? I remember your videos on that show, but not about any of the other shows. If you've seen others, which is your favorite and why, and or favorite characters? I saw most of Supergirl. I don't think I saw every single episode of Supergirl, but I saw most of Supergirl. And the others, I've only really seen bits and pieces. I've seen a few episodes of The Flash. I saw a few episodes of Legends of Tomorrow and thought that was a really fun show. That's a show that I would have watched more often if I just had more time. And I saw the crossovers when they did like the big like Crisis on Earth X and Crisis on Infinite Earths. I watched all of those. So I've seen some of everything, but the only one that I've seen every single episode of is Superman and Lois, and the only one I've seen most of is Supergirl. So, yeah, and I mean, other than Superman and Lois, I guess it would be Supergirl because that's the one that I felt compelled to to watch more. And even though it got really goofy in certain places and it wasn't always like what I would call a top tier show, I always really, really liked Supergirl a lot. Russell, different Russell. Same name, different person. Russell, hey Steve. First, let me say I was saddened to hear the news of Michelle Trachtenberg and Gene Hackman. Yeah, it's been a rough week, hasn't it? And while I won't comment on the circumstances, let me say I always liked the character of Dawn on Buffy, and my thoughts go out to her friends and family. As far as Gene Hackman goes, the man was a legend. There really are no words. I love the little video you did about him. You mentioned you had seen Mississippi Burning, and you gave me your thoughts on the film overall, but what was your thoughts behind Hackman's performance? I love the scene where he challenges the deputy, a Sipowicz moment for sure. Also, have you seen Extreme Measures with Gene in it, or Runaway Jury? If not, Hackman's performance, as always, is stellar. Not to mention Unforgiven and, of course, the Superman films. I need to watch Hoosiers this weekend. Any great performances that stood out for you? R.I.P. Gene Hackman. I felt it only right to honor him by using this for a Q&A. Thank you, Steve, and your channel. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned a bunch of them in my video about him that I put up earlier. First of all, I've never seen Extreme Measures or Runaway Jury, but I will put them on my list of Hackman movies to see. Yeah, I think you mean the scene in Mississippi Burning where he's at the bar with the deputy and the other rednecks, and he grabs is it Michael Rooker who plays the other guy? It's Brad Dourif is the deputy, and Michael Rooker is his friend, I guess. And Hackman grabs him by the balls, and then like pushes him out of the chair. Yeah, it's a great scene. It's a great scene. I mean, Mississippi Burning is a good movie. My problem with it is that it's it's centered on the white people. It's the story of the investigation into the murder and terrorization of black people in the South during the Jim Crow era, and it's all about the white people. And that's just it's like, okay, can we can we make a movie about racism that's not all about white people? Even if the message is good, like the message is racism is bad and racists suck, but all the major characters in it are white people. So, but no, Gene Hackman is great in it. Willem Dafoe is great in it. My God, what a wonderful gift to have a movie where both Willem Dafoe and Gene Hackman are in it, two of my favorite actors, and they're a team, and they're great. So my problems with the concept of that movie aside, it's a really good movie, and Hackman is fantastic in it, as he was fantastic in everything. If you want a recommendation of another great performance that hasn't been mentioned, I referred to it just briefly by title in my video, but Heist, which was one of his last movies. I think it was in maybe 2001 when Heist came out, written and directed by the brilliant but incredibly problematic David Mamet. But Heist is a great movie, and Hackman is great in it. So I would throw that one out there to anybody who wants to see a great Gene Hackman movie, Heist. He is absolutely fantastic in that. Don Quixote. I'm sure you've heard that William Shatner is in talks to reprise his role as Captain Kirk. What are your feelings about it? If they would have had the technology to de-age him a decade or so ago, I would be more okay with it, if only to give the character a better ending. I have heard about it. My thoughts are, first of all, I'll believe it when I see it. And second of all, I hope I don't see it. I mean, as I see it, there are better things for the producers of Star Trek and for the studio of Paramount to be spending their money on than a Captain Kirk show starring William Shatner. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? I mean, look, my rule is always the same. If it's good, then that's all that matters. But is it a good use of creative energy and budget to be preparing a project starring 90-something-year-old William Shatner as Captain Kirk 30-some years after the last time he played the character? Is that what we want to be focusing on in Star Trek? It's the last thing I want to focus on. And I love Captain Kirk. I love Captain Kirk. And I think William Shatner was great as Captain Kirk. But that's over with now. Let's do something else. You know? I mean, as far as to give the character a better ending, I mean, look, the character had the ending he had. I wasn't thrilled with the way Kirk was handled in Generations either, but it's over. We got what we got. And it should not be an ongoing project to continually try to give better endings to characters and stories that got shitty endings the first time. That's not writing. That's not storytelling. You just accept it. Not every story is going to have a good ending. Not every character is going to have a satisfying ending. That's fine. Tell another story. Don't constantly be, well, Captain Kirk's ending wasn't as good as it. We have to go back and fix it. No, it's over. It's over. Come up with a great news story and tell that instead, please, please. And finally, from Air One Fire, a soulless minion of orthodoxy. So glad you enjoyed that episode. Hi, Steve. Talk about some of the music you like. Best wishes. Yes, as ordered, I will talk about some of the music I like. What was I listening to just recently? I was listening to something just, oh, well, okay. So, in the early to mid 2000s, I got super into Johnny Cash. Obviously, Johnny Cash is a genius. And I was super into Johnny Cash for several years and then gradually just kind of drifted out, not because I didn't like it anymore, but I just started listening to other stuff. And just recently, for some reason, I don't know if I heard one of his songs randomly in like a TV show or I just thought of it or what, but I got pulled back into Johnny Cash for the first time in years. And it was like being embraced by an old friend. I mean, Johnny Cash's music from throughout his career, from the early days, the Sun Records days, all the way up to the American recording stuff at the end, is some of my favorite music ever. And those American recordings albums, especially the first few, really, especially the first one, although they're all good. Like they're all good, but the first one that's just called American Recordings that came out in what, 94, I think. One of the greatest albums ever made. It's just genius. It's so good. Every song is amazing. And some of the best songs that Cash ever recorded in a career full of incredible recordings. I mean, Delia's Gone. Jesus Christ, what a song. Let the Train Blow the Whistle When I Go. One of my favorite songs ever. My God, what a great song. You'll be left without excuses for the evils and abuses down to the days from years and years ago. And have yourself another toke from my basket full of smoke. And let the train blow the whistle when I go. Let her blow, long and loud and hard and happy, let her blow. No regrets, all my debts will be paid when I get laid. Let her blow, let her blow, let her blow. I mean, what a great fucking song. So Johnny Cash. And like that's just from, that's from, relatively speaking, the latter portion of his career. That's from the 90s, but like, I mean, he did great shit all throughout his career. His live albums in the 60s, live from Folsom Prison and live from San Quentin, are maybe the two greatest live albums ever recorded by anybody. Both of them are fucking masterpieces. So Johnny Cash, Johnny Cash, that's some music. That's some of the music I like. Johnny Cash, a fucking genius and a gift to the world of music. A gift to art just in general. Okay, that's it for the patron and member questions. Thank you all so much for being patrons and members. And before I turn my full attention to the live chat, I would like to debut for you a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. I mentioned earlier when Dana asked her question that of all the videos I've ever made, oh, some random geek, the Verve Pipe. Oh my God, I love the Verve Pipe so much. Anyway, I'll talk about that after I get through the Stuffy short. We can talk about music if people want. But Yeah, so this is a new Stuffy and Friends short. I mentioned in an answer to Dana's question earlier that of all the videos I've ever made, a Steve and Stuffy at the time it was called, video is my favorite video of mine that I've ever done, the one that I'm proudest of in terms of how it all came together. So I love the Stuffy videos. I'm very happy to continue to be able to do Stuffy related stuff, mostly in the form of these shorts now. Um, so what you're about to see is a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. It will go live on its own as a standalone YouTube short on this channel tomorrow. But because you are good enough and have good enough taste to be watching this live stream right now, you get to see it before anybody else. So please now enjoy a brand new Stuffy and Friends short.
I think you're overlooking some crucial factors.
And I think you are asking me to come across this table. Oi, Sir Lancelot.
That's my rap name. Outside the studio, you can just call me Steve.
Whatever. You're always going on and on about being an English major in school and barfing your half-arsed opinions out for all the world to hear.
Go on.
Settle a dispute between us two.
Okay. What's the dispute?
Edgar Allan Poe or Bram Stoker?
Who wins in a fight?
Poe.
I told you.
How the hell would puny gothic drunkard Edgar Allan Poe beat the mighty Irish literary giant and syphilitic Bram Stoker in a fight?
Because Poe was poor. He struggled all of his life. He was scrappy. He was hungry. Stoker was more successful. He was high society. He hung out with Henry Irving. He came to America and got invited to the White House. If they ever crossed paths and Stoker started something, Poe would beat him to death with a bottle of Martell.
I should have known the bloody Americans would stick together.
Is that what you said too?
Basically, I said Poe would beat him to death with a bottle of Amontillado.
That also works.
I see a lot of people in the chat agreeing with me, saying Poe, definitely Poe. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute now. Let me switch over so people can see the chat on screen here. George White says Bram Stoker, an outlier. Pretty much everybody else is saying Poe, but good for you, George, for sticking to your guns there. Okay. So anyway, glad you all enjoyed that, and it seems we are largely in agreement over. Oh, there's the cask of Amontillado quote. For the love of God, Montrezor. Yes. No Fate Project. Where's my jetpack? Yeah, that was what I liked about that when I wrote it. The idea that it seems like they're having some kind of an intellectual argument, and then it comes down to not who's the better writer between Poe and Stoker, but who wins in a fight. There was a member message up here. Oh, from Don Quixote. Steve, do you do karaoke? No, I do not. No, I do not. Eli Balin says Poe wins at drunk fighting every time. I would think so, yeah. Isaiah Taylor says, was Poe really that way? Just asking. Poe was, he wasn't poor as in impoverished and destitute, but he did not do super well financially during his life. Poe was one of the first fully professional writers in America. That means like he earned his living through his writing. He didn't have a benefactor. He didn't have a wealthy patron. He wasn't like a person who was already rich who wrote, and didn't have to worry about whether or not his writing sold or paid. Like Poe earned a living with the money he made by selling his writing and generating income in various ways through his writing, right? So he was not super rich. He wasn't rich at all. But he wasn't like, he wasn't impoverished necessarily. But I mean, Bram Stoker, in addition to being a very successful writer during his life, he also was the manager of the Lyceum Theatre in London, and that was a pretty prestigious gig for him as well. So Bram Stoker, again, Bram Stoker was not like, richer than the King of England or anything, or the Queen of England at the time, but he did very well. He did very well. He was a much more financially successful and financially stable person than Poe was. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Alto Eager. Thank you very much. Alto Eager just became a member. I really appreciate that. Joe McClory says Poe for writer as well. Yeah, I prefer Poe's writing to Stoker's. I mean, to be fair, I haven't read very much Stoker. I've read Dracula, and I think I might have read, what was the thing they published that was like his Dracula's Guest, which was like a discarded section of Dracula that they published as like its own thing many years later. I mean, I like Stoker as a writer, as far as I can tell from my small amount of exposure to him, was a perfectly fine writer. But no, I find Poe's writing to be a lot more gripping, let's say. Super chat from Cast Iron Chaos. Thank you very much. The Conversation is a little scene masterpiece, a story of a lonely man's midlife crisis. In the end, his life is literally destroyed, but really it had been his entire life. The Conversation is an amazing film, yes. We reviewed it, I think, last year on Late Seating. And just an incredible movie. Such a great movie. And Hackman is amazing in it. I mean, Hackman's great in everything, but the Conversation is, and I think Hackman himself considered his performance in The Conversation to be his favorite performance that he had given in his career. So it's worth, if you've not seen it, it's worth seeing for that, if for no other reason. Kirak with some more Gene Hackman stuff. Thank you very much with a super chat here. In terms of the Gene, I will watch Hoosiers and The Heist and Behind Enemy Lines for the first time. If you will watch Extreme Measures and Runaway Jury, and we'll compare notes. Deal? I cannot make any promises on when I will be able to watch those, because there are some other movies that I would like to watch in the next week or so. I don't know if I'll have time to watch Extreme Measures or Runaway Jury, but I definitely do want to watch them. Yeah, I definitely do want to watch them. So I will promise you that I will watch them at some point, but I can't make any promises that I'll watch them in any particular, by any particular deadline. George White says, Steve, you got a really nice voice. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. CMX says, karaoke would require Steve to go out in public and in a social situation. Yeah. And specifically like a bar or a club, which is my least favorite kind of social situation. Darylette says, last week, Jerry Butler, the Iceman, passed. This week, Roberta Flack. I like The Wrecking Crew and Muscle Shoals, but they're not biopics, they're documentaries. What says you in the chat? I have not seen either one of those, so I can't speak to that. I will say, in terms of biopics about musical figures, and to tie this in with, John Collins, members of any level can be part of the live hangouts. Yeah, any members or patrons, no matter what your level of support, are get the link to join the hangout, and they are the last Sunday of every month. But as far as music figure biopics, I mean, to take it back to Johnny Cash, I think Walk the Line is one of the best ones. I don't think it's perfect. And my big problem with Walk the Line was that the scenes that take place at Folsom Prison are so good and so compelling that when I watched the movie, I wish the whole movie had just been about Johnny Cash's first concert at Folsom Prison. Like, I mean, there's other stuff in it that's good. The biopic parts of it are good. There's, the scenes from throughout his life. It's really well made and well acted. I like it a lot. But every time we see those Folsom Prison scenes, I find myself wishing they had just cut out everything else and just made a movie with Joaquin Phoenix as Johnny Cash and Reese Witherspoon as June Carter. And it was just laser focused on the Folsom Prison concert. I would love to see that movie. Air One Fire says, Dracula was bad writing. I will say this. In terms of classic horror novels, I definitely preferred Frankenstein. I did not read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein for a very long time, partially because I had read Dracula and thought it was fine, but it didn't like blow me away. And I don't think I actually read Frankenstein, the novel, until college. And when I read it, I read it for a class, And I thought it was great. And I thought, damn, I wish I'd read this before, because I really thought it was excellent. Way better than than Dracula. Airwood Fire says, is the conversation the movie where that guy has dinner with Andre? I like it. Lewis Anderton, any recommendations for seeing Hackman at his most heroic? I mean, Mississippi Burning is a good one. Again, other than, it's problematic for reasons I stated earlier, but Hackman's character is a very heroic character. Hoosiers, Hoosiers is a good movie where he plays a good guy. What else? What else is a good heroic Hackman movie? I mean, he did play villains quite often. It's easier to think of memorable Hackman villain roles than virtuous ones. I mean, he's the hero in The French Connection, but the character isn't very heroic. I mean, the character has some, like I said in my video, the character has some very unlikable qualities. But he's also a great character, and it's a great performance, and it's a great movie. John Burns with a super chat. Do you really expect the Democrats to lead an armed uprising? I just expect them to hope they win the House and then start impeaching everyone. Well, no, of course I don't expect them. I didn't say I expected them. And just because, I mean, look, if there is eventually an armed uprising against Trump, nobody's saying that the Democrats, especially the Democratic Party, is going to be the ones leading it. Uncommon Valor, Cast Iron Chaos. There you go. Oh, Crimson Tide. He's not really the good guy in that. John Burns says, do you have a Discord? Stream Runaway Jury there. I don't, and no. No, I wouldn't stream a movie I don't have the rights to. Norman Bookwell says Mary Shelley is the better writer of the two. I mean, she seems to be, from what I read. My conversation with Andre, Tasby12, that's good. But Isaiah says Crimson Tide is a really good movie. And it's good, like it's almost entirely good just because of the acting. Right? Like Crimson Tide, I mean, I know Tarantino did a rewrite on the script. The script isn't terrible, but like for me, the main reason to see Crimson Tide is to see Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman just fucking act at each other. Like it's like theater. It's like it's almost like the rest of the characters in the movie don't even matter. It's a 2-character play about these two people on a submarine who are just having a battle of wills. And it's great. It's such a good movie just purely for the acting. Stephen G. Clenard, he's got an evil grin, he's got curly hair, and every time he smiles, it means trouble somewhere. So don't talk to me about Gene Hackman. Robin Hitchcock, Gene Hackman. Nicely done. Nicely done. Very appropriate. Yes, Royal Tenenbaums. Summary going to be a great movie and great Hackman performance. Impish Misconception says, can you always wear glasses in your videos? They make you look so handsome. You look handsome anyway, but with the glasses, damn, asking. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Very nice thing to say. I wear them most of the day, just when I'm not on camera now. If you see me in a video where I'm not wearing them, it's because of the lighting. It's because you see how you can see the lights in my glasses now, right? A lot of times for my more proper pre-recorded, edited, more professional type videos, I'm lighting the subject light that's actually lighting me is a ring light around the camera, and I'm looking at the camera. So it's almost impossible to not have a big ring light reflection in the lens. And I find that a little distracting when I'm editing, and I imagine people watching the video would find it distracting too, because you can like I said, when my head is at a particular angle in these live streams, you can see the ring lights on either side of me in my glasses, and that's not as bad because they're kind of small, and I'm moving around and looking at stuff, and they're not always right there, and they're not obscuring my eyes. But the big ring light around my good camera It's kind of hard to not have that reflected in the glasses in a big, unavoidable way. So for most of those, I pick off my glasses, and also for a similar reason, for when I do my Star Trek retro review videos, which are not lit by a ring light because there's no, well, it's not lit by my big ring light because there's no room where I set it up. I have the camera for those retro reviews like literally right over here. I'm sitting here doing it, and the camera is, a few feet away, and there's just no space for a ring light, and that's lit with different lights. But even so, with that setup, it's hard to avoid the lights in the glasses. So if I take the glasses off now that I'm wearing them all the time, it's a lighting issue. But I will try my best to wear them as often as possible for you. Bill Johnson, that's interesting. I watched Crimson Tide yesterday, and it feels like a TNG movie directed by Michael Bay. Not directed by Michael Bay. It's too well directed to be directed by Michael Bay. But I get what you're saying. Nolan Keck, was Christopher Lee the best Dracula? I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, for one thing, he played him a bunch. He played him in at least 2 legitimately great movies, because Horror of Dracula is a fucking classic. And the next time he played Dracula after that, for Hammer, was Dracula Prince of Darkness, and that is also a fucking awesome movie. So that's pretty good track record. And he played him a bunch of times after that as well in movies of varying quality. But no, I think Christopher Lee was the best Dracula for sure. Boo Earns with a super chat. Thank you very much. Hey, Steve, ever read the Mars trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson? I always thought Hackman would have made a great Frank Chalmers 30 some odd years ago. I have not read that, but I take your word for it. Thank you for the recommendation. I mean, Hackman would have been good pretty much in anything, don't you think? Steve, here's Brian Baker with a super chat. Thank you very much. Steve, do you think that a story arc has to show the results of a character arc in order to be a good story, i.e. All Good Things versus Voyager's ending? Not necessarily. I mean, I do think it helps if a story arc also coincides with the paying off of a character arc or the resolution of a character arc. Presumably, assuming it's a character arc that has been good enough to get people to give a shit about. Like if it's a character arc and a character you care about. I mean, it doesn't hurt. I don't think it's absolutely necessary. And I also don't think that you have to resolve every single thing at the end of a story. Whether or not it's part of a series. If you're just writing a story and you plan for this to be the only story you ever tell about this situation and these characters, you don't have to resolve every single fucking thing by the time you get to the end of the story. You can leave certain things hanging. You can leave certain things ambiguous. You can leave certain things in tension, even if you intend to never resolve it. Like, that's completely fine. And that's just a storytelling choice that you're free to make, and it might work and it might not. But no, I mean, having character arcs resolve alongside the plot or the story arc, not necessary, but I think it's often a good idea. I mean, it's usually considered a mark of good storytelling if character arcs and the larger story arc kind of run together. Philip Schwartz with a super chat. Thank you very much, Philip. What scenes in media resonate with you most regarding our political moment? I recall Picard's speech in The Drumhead or Chaplin's famous speech. Oh man, that Chaplin speech. Yeah. Chaplin's speech in The Great Dictator is one of my favorite movie moments. And yeah, that's something that you go back to no matter what. Like, it's evergreen. That's a good one. Yeah, Picard in The Drumhead is a good one. What about... I had one a second ago and now it's gone. Don't you love that? Oh, okay. It comes at the end of a really cheesy, terrible movie, but I've always really liked Superman's speech to the UN at the end of Superman 4. I like his speech toward the beginning too, where he says, "I'm going to rid our planet of nuclear weapons." Like that was because it's wish fulfillment. It's like, man, I wish Superman was here and he could just fucking take care of this shit for us, you know. And then the end, he tries to tie it all together by saying, you know, it wasn't my gift to give. You know, people have to achieve world peace on their own, which is a very important message that we all need to hear. It's a shame that it comes at the end of a really lousy movie, but I appreciate the thought behind it. But no, that you can't beat that Chaplin speech. You can't beat that Chaplin speech. Oh, have fun at dinner, Brian. Am I missing some super chats? Thank you, Kirak. Let me see if I can go back and see any that I failed to. Oh, Damien, thank you. And Kirak said, who can forget the birdcage? Indeed. Kirak also said, I did miss a few. How did I miss all these? Kirak also said, I was referring to the barber scene when he beats the deputy for beating his wife and killing the civil rights people. Okay, yeah, I know that scene. Yeah, I was thinking of the scene where he grabs the guy's balls. But no, that's a really good scene too. Let me go back and find this other one that I missed. Ah, Damien, it was way back there. Okay. Thank you, Damien. Sorry about missing it. I just wanted to let you know, having rewatched the most tortured character video, that Alexander gets murdered in Star Trek Online saving Worf. Good for him. I'm glad he got murdered, and I'm glad he saved Worf. And also from earlier, Jen B, thank you, Jen. Again, sorry for missing your super chat until now. I should have checked these when I came back from the patron and member questions. Can you please do a retro review of DS9's Little Green Men? I will definitely be doing that one eventually. I don't know when. I don't think I have it on the schedule yet, but yes, I will do one at some point. I have the retro reviews kind of scheduled out for the next quite a bit, actually. And I don't know if Little Green Men is in any of the batches I have planned right now, but I will definitely get around to it. I like Little Green Men a lot. Peter Finch in Network. Yeah, there you go. That's a good one, George. Isaiah Taylor says, have you ever seen Michelle T, meaning Michelle Trachtenberg, in Eurotrip? I have not seen Eurotrip. The only thing that I have ever seen Michelle Trachtenberg in for any significant amount of time is when she was Dawn in Buffy. And I thought she was great. I thought she was so good in Buffy, but that's the only thing of hers that, because I mean, her stuff when she was a child actor was kind of below my level. Like I never saw Harriet the Spy or any of that stuff. I was aged out of the program by that point. But no, so the only stuff of hers I ever really saw was Buffy. Nick Jeffrey. Yeah. As an observer from afar, I find it difficult to believe that the U.S. political system is making the movie Idiocracy look like utopian fiction. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to believe from here too, man. Steve Schmeling says, is that Mama's boy still upset about throwing up in the casket? Well, I never said he threw up in the casket. He threw up at the funeral. You are adding the detail of throwing up in the casket, but just between you and me, he threw up in the casket. I think he's only upset about it when he's reminded of it by journalists who are supposed to be interviewing him for you know, a true crime documentary. Yeah, Kirak 2011, the barber scene is the Sipowicz moment. I can see that. Joe McClory says, is House of Quark in this batch, meaning the courtroom batch? No, it is not. No, it is not. Nolan Keck says, would love to see Steve do The Conscience of the King and the only Trek episode with a double red alert. Again, I'm in theory, I'm going to review them all. We'll see how long that takes and if I'm able to review them all. But yeah. Boo Earn says, I have expected a best Lex Luthor ever as a memorial video for Hackman. I'm not doing that one. There is a best Superman ever coming next week. It's not about Gene Hackman or Lex Luthor. But I might do a video about Hackman's Luthor if I can figure out a way into it other than he was awesome, because he was. The thing about Hackman's Luther is it's one of those performances that I've had ups and downs with as I've matured, I guess, because obviously when I was a kid, I loved it, and that was my Lex. And then when I got into my teenage years, and I thought, that's not Lex. Lex should be a serious character. Lex should be a villain, and he should be formidable, and the post-crisis industrialist Lex, and he's not a figure of fun. He's not a comedic character. He's a serious villain who threatens everything that Superman stands for, right? And then I matured a little bit more, and I was like, you can have both. You can have both. You can have serious, dangerous, threat to society, evil billionaire Lex, and you can have goofy, real estate obsessed, kind of sort of mad scientist Lex that Hackman plays in the movies. You can have both. And if both are done well, both can be great. Let me see here. John Burns said Crimson Tide was directed by Bruckheimer and Don Simpson, otherwise known as Michael Bay's stepfathers. Yeah, but I mean, are you telling me that actually were they? No, was it directed? Let me see. That's what I thought. It was directed by Tony Scott, my friend. It was produced by Bruckheimer and Simpson because they are not directors. They are, or were in Simpson's case, producers, not directors. Tony Scott directed it. And Tony Scott, even though his career also had its ups and downs, was a much better director than Michael Bay. But it was produced by Bruckheimer and Simpson. And here's another super chat from Ka Cinema. Ever since the election, the same 3 words from X-Men 97 keep coming back into my mind. Magneto was right. Magneto was throwing down in that show, wasn't he? I mean, he was dropping truth bombs that whole time. Yeah. Nolan Keck Hackman was briefly in Superman 2. He was in Superman 2 a good bit. Let me see. Oh, Philip says, I really love John Cryer as Lex in Supergirl. So did I. I thought he was, it's difficult to articulate, but I thought he was a perfect TV Lex. I liked how weaselly he was. I thought he was a really good Lex. It took a little bit for the Lex that they had in the final season of Superman and Lois to grow on me. I wasn't really into him for a few episodes, but he won me over eventually. By the end of the series, I thought, okay, that's a good Lex. But it took me a while to get there. John Collins says, Steve, your closing argument video is vital and biting. Thank you. Do you ever worry that people click on your parody videos and then they mistakenly believe you actually believe what you're saying? Parody, I guess you mean. Like satire. Not really. And if they do, that's not my audience. Like, anytime you tell a joke, especially if you're doing satire and you're trying to do it with a straight face and you're not, winking or lampshading it, and you're trusting that the audience will get the joke and will understand that you're kidding and that you're trying to make a point. Anytime you do that, there will always be people in the audience who don't get it. So I don't worry about that. My concern is to make sure that I do it in such a way that most people will get it. If a few people don't get it, that's fine. You have to expect that. I don't write for them. I write for the people who I trust will get it. Whether they agree with me or not, I write for the people who I trust will get it. Kirak 2011 says, retro best captain. What is your pick? Cisco. Oaktown Brick says, what are your thoughts on Star Wars? And have you heard about the Lego Star Trek leak? I have not. Is it like, did Lego finally get the Star Trek license? Are there actually going to be Star Trek Legos? I hadn't heard about that. I love Star Wars. I don't love all of it. Some of it I downright don't like at all. But then again, same thing with Star Trek. I don't love all of Star Trek either. There's some Star Trek movies or shows or what have you that are fucking rotten. And there's some Star Wars that's fucking rotten. But you know, on the whole, as like a thing, I love Star Wars. Tasby 12, this is a good point. Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor was an evil real estate magnate who surrounded himself with idiots, had an enormous ego, and cartoonishly bragged about how great he was and had evil plans. How, you know, it's just too far-fetched. That's why I just can't get into it. It's too far-fetched. Stephen G. Clark with a super chat. IMDb, settling bets since 1990. Indeed, my friend. Where would we be without it? 255 AD says, my favorite Picard speech is from The Offspring. There are times when men of good conscience cannot blindly follow orders. Order a man to turn over his child to the state? Not while he's a member of my crew. Picard had some good ones, didn't he? Picard had some good ones. Yeah, exactly. Evil plans that would hurt and kill millions of people. Totally unrealistic. I agree. Yeah, Norman, I was thinking of that too. There were people who thought Colbert was serious. There are people. No matter what joke you make, no matter what you're satirizing, there are always people who aren't going to get it. There are people. One of the most frustrating things on the internet right now for me is, and this seems to happen every few weeks, if not even more frequently, when there will be usually a small group of people on Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever, who are like really, really pissed off about something that was obviously a joke. And they're not, and it's not because like the joke was offensive or the joke. I mean, obviously if somebody makes a joke and it's racist or homophobic or something like that, that's completely fine to be pissed about that. Just saying it's just a joke is not an excuse. But I'm talking about like a situation where people are like kind of, you know, fucking around with each other and one person's being mean to another person, but it's obvious that they're both in on it and they're just doing a bit. But there will be some people who don't recognize that it's a bit. And they'll like be really, really mad on behalf of the person being mistreated in the bit. That drives me up a wall. I'm like, how do you not see that this is a fucking bit? I'll tell you something else. In the skit that I did a few weeks ago where I play the preacher, like the priest in the collar, and I keep being interrupted by someone in the congregation who's like a MAGA shithead who keeps yelling stuff at me. I don't know how I could make it more obvious that that was a skit, right? Like I'm wearing a really cheap priest costume. The background behind me is obviously like a green screened in background. It's just a picture of like the wall and the ceiling of a cathedral. And I got a jarringly large number of comments on that video from people who would say this: is this fake? Is this staged? This doesn't seem real. I feel like this is fake. This seems staged. It's a skit. Do you not see that it's a skit? Like, yeah, I guess in a sense it is. It's fake, it's staged, but not in the sense that they're using the word. I'm not trying to fool anyone to think that it's real. It's obviously meant to be taken as a joke. What the fuck? So, yeah, there's always going to be those people, and they do annoy me when they pop up, but like I said, I don't write for them. Agent Meister, my first super chat to anyone ever. Oh, I'm so honored. Thank you. Now all of God's creatures got a place in the choir. Sing it with me, Steve. I don't recognize the song. I'm sorry to ruin your first super chat. Isaiah Taylor, thoughts on the scuttling of the ship SS United States. Is that a metaphor for what's happening right now? I wish it was happening while I wasn't on the ship. Steve Schmeling, yes, I am on Blue Sky. My experience with it is fine. I mean, it's a social media platform. It's okay. I've noticed I mean, this is just my experience. It might be somebody else might have a completely different experience, but I have noticed I get a lot more engagement on Blue Sky than I get on Twitter. I don't know why that is. But no, I mean, Blue Sky it seems fine. Yeah. Joe McClure says, how did it feel hearing about the Trump gold card thing after your video about a similar thing? I mean, it's the perils of trying to write satire in this fucked up, crazy world, right? I mean, the gold card thing, it's not exactly like what I was talking about in my video, but it's uncomfortably close, isn't it? Like, the joke of my video was that they're trying to sell you something you already are supposed to have. They're turning constitutional rights into a streaming service, and they're forcing people to pay for the rights that they're supposed to already just have. Like, that was the joke of my video. And Trump was saying, well, that they'll put like some kind of premium price on legal residence or citizenship. So it's not exactly the same thing, but it's like, it's close enough to make you go, oh, Jesus. You know? Oh, Kara, yes, my story, it was awful joke. Yeah. Again, to me, especially when you get to a certain point in that story, like I could understand if somebody thought I was being serious in like the first couple of minutes, because it's relatively mundane and straight. But once I'm like looking for a serial killer and I'm like in the basement of the house and I'm finding like guts in a bucket, like, I'm sorry, I feel like by that point you should be catching on that this is not a real story, even though I'm telling it with a totally straight face. Because if I was winking at you and telling you it's not real, then that completely ruins it. But I feel like if you're with me, you know, you should be catching on. But not everybody will, and that's fine. And again, you don't do it for them. You don't do it for the people who aren't going to get it. You do it for the people who are going to get it. And when you get to the end, they're going to go, aha! Or they're going to go, oh, it was all that for just a terrible pun or whatever, you know? But they'll be on board. Oaktown Brick says there's a rumor that Lego will make an Enterprise D with minifigures of Picard, Riker, Geordi, Worf, Data with Spot, Troy, Guinan, and Beverly and Wesley Crusher. Wow, that sounds pretty cool. And it will only cost about $3,000, I bet. Luffy Monkey with a super chat. Thank you very much. Says, hey, hope you are doing well. Love your channel. Been watching it for years. Just recently published a book, Wonderment Within Weirdness. Well, there you go, everybody. Look for that book. Check it out. Wonderment Within Weirdness. And thank you very much for sticking with me and watching all these years. And thank you for the super chat. Oh, we'll see you later. No Fate Project. Where's my jetpack? Thanks for stopping by. I'm about ready to wrap it up anyway. Cast Iron Chaos, you can also compare Kevin Spacey's Luther to Gene Hackman's Luther. Yeah, because, I mean, I guess technically they're supposed to be the same guy. Spacey plays him a bit more serious and a bit more sinister, less comic relief, although Spacey's version still has a little touch of that Hackman, you know, comedic part, but not, you know, he's mostly a more, it's kind of like a blending of Hackman's version and what was, you know, sort of the current comic book version, the more serious version. I mean, it's one of the things about, it sucks that Kevin Spacey turned out to be such a piece of shit, because his Lex is really good. Like, I really enjoy him as Lex in Superman Returns. Air One Fire says that's a typical experience on Blue Sky, more engagement. Well, good. Gerald McKenzie, not 3,000. It will cost $2,999.99. Well, there you go. Well, that's fair. That's fair. 255 AD says, I feel like my pre-submitted question could be summarized with, it's easier to think long-term if you don't want things that affect you and don't care about human suffering. Yeah. I mean, because I mean, the thing you have to be able to do both at once. You have to be able to pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time, right? You have to set a long-term goal and continue to pursue it, but you also have to not lose sight of the short-term, conditions either, and that can be very difficult. Oh, some random geek says, I bet Nick Anderson might review that Star Trek Lego set. I would not be surprised. All right. It is time to wrap up the show. Please pay attention to some random geek putting the links in the live chat to help out some friends of ours who need a helping hand. And also, I'll just go ahead and mention it now, charitylinks.page, which has all of those links and more to help out friends of ours who need a helping hand. If you have a few spare dollars that you would like to spend on a worthy cause, charitylinks.page. Please consider checking that out. Yeah, I think that's it. I will do my customary wrap up and then I'll come back and see if there are any final questions in the chat, and then that'll be it. So if you enjoy my YouTube stuff and you want to support this channel and the work I do, you can do that in a couple of ways. You can become a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, or you can become a channel member by clicking the join button right here on the YouTube page. Either one of those helps me out a lot. It really adds up. Even if you can only afford $1 a month or 99 cents in the case of the channel membership, those add up. Those help out. I really appreciate all of those. And of course, greater amounts help out more. $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever you can afford, whatever you think I'm worth. If my work and my YouTube stuff has meant something to you and you can afford it and you want to, I would love it if you would become a patron or a channel member. Because I could not do this without my patrons and my channel members. And of course, if you become a patron or a channel member at any level from $1 a month on up, or 99 cents, again, as is the case with the channel members at any level, you can submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away live streams. And that's the first hour usually, or more than an hour of the show. Is me answering questions that were submitted ahead of time by my patrons and my channel members. So any amount of patronage or channel membership will get you access to submit a question ahead of time if you want. Also, don't forget that in addition to the YouTube thing, I am on a couple of awesome podcasts that are part of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts. There's Late Seating, the movie review podcast, hosted by the brilliant and wonderful Jason Harding and myself, where we take a look at classic films and see if they deserve whatever reputation they may have, be it good or bad. Our newest episode is our review of the 2005 film of Pride and Prejudice, starring Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadden. You can hear what we think of that on the new episode of Late Seating. And also there is another podcast that I'm a part of, which is The Ensign's Log, which is a Star Trek themed comedy podcast. If you enjoy Star Trek and you enjoy humorous Star Trek, funny Star Trek, stuff that makes fun of Star Trek a little bit, I think you would enjoy The Ensign's Log. It's myself and Jason. And for one more episode, our friend, the wonderful Dana Cole. Dana is leaving the show. Not because of anything bad, no hard feelings. She's just decided that she doesn't want to be on the show anymore. She needs to step back. So her last episode is our next episode of the Ensign's Log. And then from that point forward, at least for a while, and unless we decide to add another cast member, it will be myself and Jason and Amanda Billings, who plays Amanda on the show. And it'll just be the three of us because Dana has abandoned us. Anyway, but no, she's welcome back. She's welcome back anytime she wants to come back. Yeah. Hope you enjoy the Ensign's Log. And the links are in the description. Check it out if you've never listened. I think you will enjoy it. Now, let me take a final pass through the chat. 255 AD says, I recently found out my mother's new physical therapist is a 31-year-old man. Is it weird to say I'm impressed that my boomer dad isn't bothered by that? No. No. Oh, Colin Hay just became a member. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to everybody who became a member during this stream. That's very cool. I always like to see that. Isaiah Taylor says, thoughts of Katy Perry going Alan Shepard on Blue Origin. I hope she thinks it's worth the money. I mean, I assume either did she pay for it herself or did some other billionaire pay for it for her? Okay, it's an expensive carnival ride. Drake Coder says it's important to know organized resistance is brewing. There are organizations, no matter how small, that are truly trying to help fight against the current admin. Get involved, America. Well said. Robert Cowie, who's winning the Elimination Chamber? If I had to bet, and I'm fully prepared for me to be completely wrong on this, but I think it's got to be either Punk or Cena. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably Cena because it seems like they're teasing something with Punk and Logan Paul. And maybe Logan Paul will cost Punk the match, and then it'll be Punk versus Paul at WrestleMania. And then it'll be Cody versus Cena for the title. I mean, the thing is, Cody versus Punk is a huge match. Cody versus Cena is a huge match. So either way, they can't go wrong. I guess it could be one of the other guys, but I can't see any of the other people being nearly as good or as exciting a winner as Punk or Cena. So I feel like it's gotta be one of those two. Air One Fire, yes, her real name is Ananda, but she has asked, and if you listen to the show, she's credited as Amanda Billings. So she goes by Amanda Billings in the credits. So I'm going to start calling her that when I mention the show. But yes, her real name is Ananda. 255 AD says, would you go on Blue Shepherd if it was free? I don't know. I'd feel dirty about it, because it's like a fucking Bezos company. It's one thing to order shit from Amazon. It's another thing to like take a ride on one of his fucking rockets. I just don't know. I don't know. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Amelia Perez? Okay, I'll end on this. I liked it, but I watched it before I saw the reaction from specifically the trans community, but also a lot of Mexican people had problems with it too. And I, as a cishet American white dude, I was just completely oblivious to the issues that they were noticing. So I completely understand and respect the opinions of the trans people who saw it and had really, really critical things to say about it. And if I had that in my head going in, I may have had a very different reaction to the movie, and I may have noticed things in it that I didn't notice. But I've only seen it once, and I saw it before I was aware of the backlash to it. So when I watched it, I thought it was pretty good. I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was like a masterpiece, but for the most part, I thought it was pretty good. But now that I have, read some of the reactions to it from people who are part of the groups that are represented by the movie, it sounds like they have legitimate grievances. If I had time, maybe at some point I'll have time to watch it again and I can see it with fresh eyes and I can see more of what they're talking about. But all I can say is, I enjoyed it when I watched it, and I didn't notice most of the things that people have problems with as a result of my own personal experience and my own privileges. Is about what it comes down to. So yeah, but it has been a very instructive reaction to the movie, and hopefully people who make movies will listen and will be more sensitive and more aware of these things in the future. But who am I kidding? That's not going to happen. At least not in Hollywood, at least not among the upper tier. I mean, there will be filmmakers who will get it, and there are already filmmakers who get it and have made, better movies on similar themes. But in terms of like studios and stuff, they're never going to learn. They're never going to learn. They're going to be, we made a movie about trans people. Why are you mad? I thought you wanted that. That's, Anyway, John says, do the Hangouts have pre-planned discussion topics? Nope. They are extremely free-flowing conversations. To a fault in many cases. Stephen E. Wright with a super chat. Thank you for the uplifting content and care. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you to all of you for being here. That is going to be it for the show. Thank you all so much for everything, for the support in whatever form it comes, whether you're a patron or a member, or you just watch the video and leave a comment and like and all of that stuff. Thank you for the interaction on the chat and all the great questions and conversations. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. And I will see you next time, folks. Bye-bye.